Hello, nail friends. We're back for another video. So I'm playing some more with this one-stroke nails. We're gonna do a paint and chat about new trends for 2024 for spring. So this video is going to be a little different, but I'm still going to paint and you're still going to watch me paint and create these crazy nails. So I decided to have a little fun with some orange, mostly because it was a new color. It's like a corally orange, but it's a very corally orange. So definitely on the warmer side. I am using red and white to paint the flowers. This is all done in gel, so it's gel polish and gel paints. I want to try this with acrylic now that I'm getting a little better at it. So for those of you that have watched some of my other videos, you know that I have been playing in the background with one stroke. This is my third attempt, I think it was. Thanks to Lauren Weinhold, I believe her last name is, over at Wildflowers. I think I have mastered some more of it. So thank you, Lauren, for helping me out with that. I took a nail art class. If you guys haven't checked those out, they're very cool. They're free. They're a lot of fun to just try some different things, yeah, that maybe you haven't thought of before or maybe you haven't mastered yet. So it's always a lot of fun to take her classes. She's kind of silly and funny. She does do a lot of selling, obviously, because that is, you know, the goal is to promote her brand and her product, which is Wildflowers. I do like a lot of their things. They can be a little pricey, but it just depends on whether you can find a sale or things like that. I do think a lot of their products are worth it, though. So there's that. Okay, I'm going to get off my soapbox about that and tell you a little more about what I'm doing. So again, this is like my third attempt. This is only the third time I have tried to do any kind of one stroke. I'm starting to like it. The first time I did it, I kind of hated it. The second time I did it, I was like, okay, maybe. This time I was definitely a little more comfortable. Some things that I learned are you have to go really, you have to not think about it. You kind of have to go fast and not think about it. And wiggling. You can see me wiggling right there. So wiggling is important depending on the type of flower you're creating. I was not creating any particular type of flower in this video. I was just kind of, honestly, I was kind of messing around. But I wanted to keep them all very similar, obviously, because I wanted to make it a set. And it was a lot of fun, actually, to create these. A couple of things, so some tips that I will share with you that I learned. A lot of artists you'll see doing what I'm doing right now, which is blending the color on their palette and then popping it on the nail. For me, that worked okay sometimes, but didn't give me the look I wanted all the time, and that may just be me. So I actually, you'll notice that when I'm on the palette, a lot of times I'm just dipping into the white on one side and the red on the other, and not mixing much at all. Because I found for me personally, this helped me to get a better look or more of a look that I wanted. And then the other thing that I learned, the other tip I can give you is working really tiny is helpful. So small movements. You can see me doing really small movements right there. Just little tiny swish and pick up, swish and pick up. That was one of those things that I failed to do when I first started learning how to do these nails. I couldn't quite figure out the motion, the wrist motion for that. Some of that I think is because I am used to painting on much larger canvases when I'm doing work similar to this. Not one stroke, but I do oil paintings and those require a different kind of wrist movement. So there you have it. That's my shtick on that. I might give you some more tips as we go along, but I wanted to stop for a minute and just talk about spring trends because I haven't done that yet. And I feel like I have failed you all by not sharing some of the spring trends that are coming out for this season, because we are in full spring season and these will carry over, as most of them do, into the summer. So you'll see them continue into the summer. Oh, sorry, one more tip. Make sure that you cure in between steps. You can't lay flowers on top of flowers without curing in between when you're working with gel. That's why I want to do it with acrylic, because I want to see if you can do it. I'm pretty sure you can, knowing what I know about acrylic, you can lay it in between without having to do any waiting in between, because acrylic paint dries pretty quickly. But anyway, back to spring trends. So some of the on-trend looks this season, you're going to find there is a wild mix of colors this year. So we go from what they are calling pastel brights to full-on intense colors. And there doesn't seem to be much rhyme or reason in between. So you might have a Kelli green, a really bright green, and a really bright orange, and a really bright red. And then you might next to that have a really soft but intense yellow, if that makes sense. And some purples and blues. So periwinkle blue is really popular. Lilac is really popular again this season, but more intense, less soft. Last year's pastels were very soft, I feel like, and there weren't a lot of them. We had a lot of orange and tan and black last season, and Kelli green. Not my favorite color palette. With regard to so those are like your nail polish colors. With regard to nail art, that is also interesting. So we are going to start seeing a lot of color melts, and color melts are exactly what you're seeing right here in this. So this is an on-trend nail set. So it's where you're using an intense color at the back and fading it down to pretty much a clear at the tip. You can also do this in reverse, where you've got a really bright tip and it fades down into an almost clear at the back. So that's kind of interesting. I also have a different kind of color melt on my nails right now, which is just a French pink melted down into just a sheer glitter at the tip. And that was a lot of fun to do on myself, because I don't typically wear light colors like this on my nails. So it was wild and different for me. So I was out of my comfort zone, friends, out of my comfort zone. Anyway, I am enjoying them though. So color melts are really important. I use the term color melt because that's what it reminds me of, is like almost like ice cream melting, one color melting into another. But it really is just a form of ombre. So, but I feel like it's ombre on the lighter side. So that's kind of nice. For those of you keeping track, I am in and out of the light. So every time you see a nail disappear, it is going back into the light to be cured again. We are going to do my first rose on this nail. I've not done a rose ever. But we're going to attempt it, and I actually was happy with the way it came out, so I'm okay with showing you how this all worked. So, what else can I tell you about spring? French manicures with a clear back, no glitter, just a light shimmer on the nails, and then at the front, it's color blocked or color tipped, however you want to look at that. And in that case, we're seeing a lot of interesting, like bright reds, greens, blended colors. So like a faded yellow to a green from one edge of the nail to the other. So not down the nail, but across. Think about it that way. Other things that we're still seeing a lot of texture on nails. So lace is really big. 3-dimensional art is really big, which is really hard for some clients to wear. I'm trying to think of what other things I have seen. Chain is kind of going out, which is okay because that was a fall trend, and I feel like that was really hard for a lot of people to wear. And, it was challenging. It was very challenging. And it's hard to get that kind of 3D thing to stick on the nail. Not that you can't, you can, but I think it's a little more difficult for people to wear on a regular basis. Nail charms are still popular. Stamping is still popular, but I feel like in different ways. So it's very French related. So there's it's still the micro French. It's still that really, really thin French at the tip, not a wide French, and rounded. Oh, and nail shapes. That's another thing that's changing. So I'm going to prepare some leaf colors, just so you know. So on the side there, if you're watching, I'm preparing some leaf colors. So the trend has been stiletto or really like coffin nails, they call them. I like to call them tapered nails because I don't like the word coffin so much. But I get why they call them that. And really long. We are actually going back the other way now, which happens with nails, right? We're going back to the squoval, which is a square oval, so square-shaped oval. The square is coming back, actually, And the other thing that is going to be popular is the ballet oval. So it kind of looks a little bit, it's like, the way I like to think about that is like a modern version of the oval, the almond shaped nail. So it's a soft. If you just noticed, I wanted to point this out to you. I'm going to stop for a second talking about trends for a minute. So this is how you get a circle. You do one half at the back, and then you come down and you go the opposite direction at the front. So what that does is it creates a center for your flower. And then you'll notice a little later on in the video, and I'll talk about what I'm doing. A little later in the video, I'm going to put some detail in it that actually turns it into a swirl. So here's some other things that came to me as I was working on these nails. Oh, and the other thing we're going to do right now is make it almost look like a fish. All it reminds me of is a fish. And you'll see why. But don't stress about that. So it actually is supposed to look that way. I was like, this is going to be a terrible nail. When I got to this point, I was like, oh no. This could be bad. But it wasn't. It wasn't. So some things I learned about, or I've figured out as I've been playing with this one stroke look, is that you have to let go of your worry about it being wrong. And that is hard for me to do. I like things to be right the first time I do them, and I don't want to have to work too hard, right? Especially at the salon, because I want to be confident in what I'm doing so that I'm able to do it quickly. But what I have learned is, and you can see it right now, is that with one stroke, a lot of the detail comes in the finish work. So initially I was trying to make that detail happen while I was creating the one stroke. And then I figured out, after watching a bunch of videos and trying different techniques out and things, is that it's not so much about that. It's about the final details. So at the end, don't worry if your petals aren't perfect, because you can outline and sort of create your petals at the end if you want to. The other thing is working with a dirty brush is really helpful. So, you'll see me dip back and forth between, especially on that little, the detailer brush that I'm using. I dip back and forth all the time between the red and the white and the red and the white, and, just depending on what I need or want. Don't stress about it. Okay. Even our guppy fish right here, which is what I'm going to call this nail, is going to turn into this amazing, beautiful nail. And you can see I'm just adding a little swish at the end there and putting, like, kind of lining it at the edge with white. I'm going to touch up that back flower petal because I want it to be a little bit wider. That's the other thing. So you'll see me do this. This is something I think you don't see with more experienced one-stroke people, which I adore them. But because they are so skilled at it, they do it very quickly, and you miss all the little things that are helpful to learn. Or at least I did. Because they have kind of forgotten like how they screwed it up, or how they fixed it, or how they figured that technique out, which is great because they've become masters at it. I am not. I'm an amateur at it. So I'm going to show you all the like little things that I did to fix flowers, which I think is great, because the reality is your client's going to talk and they're going to move and they're going to do things because they're not a perfectly, stable surface. And you're going to be like, oh my God, she just screwed up my flower. What am I going to do now? You can fix it. It's not a big deal. And the second I feel like you learn that, then you're like, oh, okay, this one stroke thing isn't so hard. It's not so bad. So again, details at the end make everything happen. And when you're doing leaves, 2 colors, it could be 2 greens. I picked a green and yellow because they kind of blend together well, and I wanted that little pop of color because I feel like this, I wanted to set it off from the orange. So the white and that yellow help the flower to kind of pop off, or the flowers to pop off the nail, and give it some depth and dimension. But you could absolutely do this with 2 greens. You could do it with a green and a white if you really wanted. But yeah. So leaves are super easy to do. That was the easiest part for me to do with the one stroke. But I will say it's a light tap and a little shimmy, if that makes sense. So light tap and a little shimmy. And that's all you need. If you go more than that, you're going to end up with a big fat leaf. But again, because you're curing this in between each layer, that other stuff is already cured, which means you can what? Oh yeah, wipe it off. So if you screw up really badly halfway through, as long as you have cured it, you can just take an alcohol wipe and wipe it off. And I was like, huh. See, the things you don't think about when you're trying to be a perfectionist like I am. Then you're like, oh yeah, huh. How about that? You can just wipe it off. It's amazing. Obviously, you can't do that with acrylic. It doesn't work so well. Although I will tell you, after years and years and years of painting with acrylic on nails, long before there was such a thing as gel polish, the trick there is to put acetone remover on a Q-tip and just gently brush the top, and it'll take that polish, or not the polish, but the acrylic paint off without taking your undercoat off, unless you press too hard, and then it'll take your undercoat off. But that is how you get around that. So there's a nifty little trick if you've never tried it. You can try that. So I'm just adding right now details to the flowers, and also adding some, here comes the swish. See, look at, and now it's a swirl. Doesn't that make sense now? And now I'm going to add some little lines in both the darker red and the white just to offset and give it a little more dimension and depth. And then we have a beautiful little tropical rose. Isn't that exciting? I was really excited about this, people. I know that's funny to think like, oh my God, she's painted so many different things, but that's like, this is what excites her. Yes, it's what excites me. When I can't master something and then all of a sudden it starts making sense to me and it comes out a little better, I'm like, oh, yes. It makes me happy. So these are up at the salon right now because I liked them that much. Then I brought them to the salon. So anyway, back to our trends while you can watch me detail. So what else is new? Lace is not new, but it is continuing on. I prefer lace stamps as opposed to actual lace, but people are trying to use actual lace, like embedded in the nail. I just, why? Why? It's not necessary. So I don't like it, but if you like it, go for it. We're getting away from mixed metals, so that's a dying trend already, which is not a surprise. However, chrome. Let's talk about chrome while I top coat. Chrome is a huge trend right now again, in different ways, in shimmer form and mirror finish. So if you have not worked with chrome yet, or you're like me and you have a love-hate relationship with chrome, you may be excited about that trend and you may not be. But it is still a trend, or it's a coming back trend again. So there's our little chat for this morning. Those are my trend chats for or recommendations. And I will do some more on-trend nails for you so you can kind of see some of these looks in person or in film. And otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this set. It's been a lot of fun. I think this is probably my best attempt yet at one stroke. We'll keep working on it. I'll see you next week, friends. Have a great week.